The beer mug shattered against the wooden floor with a violent crack that silenced Rusty Anchor instantly, the sound echoing through the dimly lit roadside bar on the outskirts of Atlanta, Georgia, where the humid night air of July 15, 2025, hung heavy with the scent of stale cigarettes and spilled whiskey. "You think you're something special?" Jack Claw Malone's voice sliced through the sudden quiet like a jagged blade, his massive hand wrapped around the collar of the small black woman who'd been wiping down tables, her skin glistening slightly under the amber glow of the overhead lights, a subtle sheen from the Georgia heat that made her look even more unassuming in her loose white server shirt and worn jeans. The claw tattoo raking across his thick forearm seemed to twitch as he pulled her closer, his breath reeking of bourbon and malice, his eyes narrowing with that familiar gleam of entitlement mixed with racial disdain, the kind that had simmered in these parts for generations but flared up unchecked in places like this. "I asked you a simple question, girl. This bar pays protection, or this bar burns. Which one's it gonna be?" Sarah Thompson kept her dark eyes fixed on the floor, her body language screaming submission, even as the 10 members of the Iron Reapers Motorcycle Club rose from their seats, forming a predatory circle around her, their leather vests emblazoned with iron scythe patches that glinted menacingly, each man posturing with the arrogance of those who ruled the backroads through fear and fire. She was maybe 5'4" in her scuffed sneakers, her white server shirt hanging loose on her slight frame, her curly hair pulled back in a simple ponytail that made her look even younger than her 35 years. Everything about her whispering ordinary, forgettable, weak. The perfect target for their brand of intimidation laced with slurs that they tossed like casual greetings. But in exactly 15 minutes, Jack Malone would be on his knees, begging for forgiveness, his crew scattering like shadows at dawn, all because of a revelation that would turn the tables in ways no one in Rusty Anchor could have anticipated. The tension had been building for 20 minutes before that glass shattered, the Iron Reapers rolling in just after 8 p.m., their Harleys thundering like a storm front, shaking the gravel parking lot and making every patron tense up their engines. A harbinger of trouble that had plagued establishments along the highway stretching toward the city limits. This wasn't their first shakedown in the area. 3 bars in the past month had gone up in flames after refusing their services. 2 owners hospitalized with accidents that everyone knew were beatings disguised as falls and whispers of arson. Investigations that went nowhere because witnesses clammed up out of fear. Sarah had watched them enter while she methodically folded napkins at the service station, her movements precise and economical, each fold a perfect triangle, a habit ingrained from years of discipline she kept buried deep. Mike, the 28-year-old bartender with a nervous twitch, had immediately started sweating when he saw the Reaper patches, murmuring under his breath, "That's them. The Iron Reapers, the ones who torched that spot in Decatur last week." His voice, laced with the anxiety of someone too young to have seen real conflict but old enough to fear it. She'd simply nodded, continuing her task without a flicker of emotion, though Mike had noticed in the 8 months she'd worked at Rusty Anchor how everything she did carried an almost mechanical precision, the way she wiped tables in grid patterns, arranged condiments with geometric accuracy, never turning her back to the door for long, always scanning the room with peripheral vision that seemed too sharp for a simple server. Jack Malone had made his entrance like a self-proclaimed overlord, all 6'4" of him swaggering through the swinging doors with arms spread wide, his scarred face twisted in a grin that didn't reach his cold eyes, the claw tattoo starting at his wrist and vanishing up his sleeve, his shaved head gleaming under the bar's flickering neon signs advertising cheap domestics. His 9 companions fanned out behind him in what Sarah quietly noted was a tactically sound formation, covering exits, maintaining sightlines, establishing dominance over the space without a word. their boots thudding against the worn planks, like drumbeats of impending doom. Evening, folks. Jack had boomed to the 15 or so regulars, mostly blue-collar workers from the nearby warehouses and a smattering of off-duty cops. Nursing coffees, his tone dripping with false camaraderie that barely masked the threat beneath. "Don't mind us. We're just here for a drink and a little chat about security." The patrons shifted uncomfortably, eyes darting to their drinks, avoiding contact, while Deputy Lisa Hargrove, a 48-year-old veteran of the Atlanta PD who'd seen her share of gang disputes, set down her mug slowly in the corner booth, her hand inching toward her hip where her off-duty piece was holstered, her expression hardening as she assessed the intruders. Sarah had approached their table with her order pad, keeping her gaze lowered, her voice soft and deferential. "What can I get for you, gentlemen?" That's when the first spark of ugliness ignited one of the bikers. A lanky guy with yellow teeth from years of meth slapped her backside as she passed, snarling, "How about you start with a smile, darky? You look like you're at a funeral," the racial slur hanging in the air like smoke, drawing chuckles from his crew but tense silence from the bar. She'd stepped out of reach with a fluid sidestep that appeared accidental but was calculated, continuing to take orders without acknowledgement, her face a mask of calm that infuriated them more than any retort could. Mike had gripped the bar edge, his knuckles whitening, ready to intervene. But Sarah caught his eye with a subtle shake of her head, signaling to stand down, knowing escalation would only feed their game. The Reapers ordered pitchers of beer, demanding extras on the house, and Sarah served them efficiently, her movements economical. But that's when Jack's focus locked onto her like a predator scenting vulnerability, his eyes raking over her with a mix of contempt and curiosity. She'd been clearing a nearby table when he called out, "Hey, you the server chick, where's the owner? We got business." "Mr. Rusty is in Savannah for a family thing," Sarah replied quietly, not meeting his gaze. "I'm just handling shifts." "Well then," Jack rose, towering over her, his shadow engulfing her small frame. "You'll pass the message. Tell him the iron. Reapers are offering protection for this dump, $3,000 a month, and we make sure no accidents happen." Sarah continued, wiping the table, her cloth moving in steady circles. "I'll mention you stopped by." That's when Jack's facade cracked, his voice dropping to a menacing growl. "You don't get it, do you? This ain't optional. Every joint from here to the city pays up, or they learn the hard way, fires, break-ins, you name it. And for a place like this, with staff like you," he sneered, emphasizing the last word with racial undertones, "it'd be a shame if things got messy." The encirclement tightened. The bikers shifting into positions, Sarah automatically cataloged a classic intimidation ring. But flawed. The one by the pool table favored his right leg, likely an old injury. The pair near the jukebox were more bark than bite, distracted by their posturing. Jack himself stood too close, violating the reactionary gap in his overconfidence. Her fingers brushed the dog tag chain hidden under her shirt, the metal warm against her skin, a talisman of a life she'd left behind for deployments to the Middle East, 18 confirmed engagements, 3 bronze stars, a purple heart, all stashed in a locker in her tiny apartment, along with her sergeant's stripes and the ghosts that came with them. She'd come to Rusty Anchor seeking invisibility, a place to blend into the background, pour drinks for truckers and locals who didn't probe her past. Didn't care about the nightmares that jolted her awake at 3 a.m., but trouble had a way of sniffing out warriors, even those trying to fade into civilian obscurity. Sarah palmed her rugged smartphone discreetly, its reinforced case a holdover from her days in the field. Equipped with encrypted apps and emergency beacons she'd sworn off using, but old habits died hard. She slipped it back into her pocket, focusing on the present. "Look," Jack pressed, his patience fraying, "I'm being nice, but you're pushing it. Convince your boss to play ball, and maybe there's something in it for you. What do you make here? Minimum wage, scraping tips from these rednecks. We could set you up better. I'm good, thanks, Sarah said, finally looking up, her brown eyes steady, serene, which only fueled his rage. That's when he grabbed her arm, fingers digging in like vices, bruising the skin. Listen, you uppity little. Take your hands off her. Deputy Hargrove stood, her voice cutting through the room with authority honed from years on the force, her stance solid despite being off duty. Jack laughed, not releasing Sarah. And who's gonna make me, lady? Outgunned, outnumbered, and way out of your league. But Hargrove didn't flinch, and Sarah noted several patrons shifting. At least 4 with faded military tattoos or unit pins on their jackets, ready to back her up if things turned. The air thickened with volatility, glasses clinking nervously. The jukebox's country twang seeming out of place. It's fine, Deputy, Sarah said softly. These guys are leaving. Jack yanked her closer, his free hand snatching her collar. You don't decide when we leave, girl. We leave when we've taught respect. Chairs scraped as more patrons rose, Mike clutching a bat from under the bar. But Jack's focus was solely on Sarah, on breaking her perceived defiance. Your problem is you think you're equal, he snarled, face inches from hers, his breath hot and foul. Time to remind you of your place. Sarah stayed still, breathing controlled. Weight shifted to her toes, body angled for leverage to observers. She looked terrified, but Hargrove, with her own combat experience from urban patrols, spotted the tells, the poised stance, the calculated calm. Last warning, Jack growled. Call your boss now, or we start with you. Can't, Sarah said simply. That's when he ripped the shirt, the fabric tearing with a sharp rip, exposing her black tank top beneath. But it was what lay under that changed. Everything, the silence absolute, even the ceiling fans seeming to halt. Across Sarah's back, visible through the thin fabric, sprawled the Eagle Globe. An anchor of the United States Marine Corps, inked with meticulous detail, feathers etched finely, and below it, Force Recon. SGTS Thompson, 0311, marking her as elite, an infantry specialist in one of the Corps' most grueling units. Scars narrated the rest. A bullet entry near her shoulder. Shrapnel packs along her side. A knife scar snaking down her ribs, battle marks that spoke of close calls in dusty villages and urban hellholes. Jack froze, hand still clutching the torn cloth, his brain scrambling to reconcile the image before him. His crew paled, their swagger evaporating. Force Recon, Hargrove whispered, awe in her voice. Damn. Sarah's posture shifted subtly, shoulders squaring, chin lifting, voice losing its softness. Mr. Malone, you owe me for the shirt. The room's energy flipped, like a storm breaking. Patrons murmuring, phones emerging to record. Jack's face cycled through shock to fear, releasing the fabric like it burned him. How do you know my name? He stammered. Sarah turned slowly, displaying the tattoo and scars fully. Jack Malone, a dishonorably discharged from the Army for trafficking gear. Founded the Iron Reapers 4 years ago, linked to 5 arsons and assaults. I track threats in my zone. From a booth, an older man, Rose Colonel Elias Grant, retired, a Silver Star holder who'd frequented the bar incognito. Sergeant Thompson Mosul, 2017, you held that marketplace against ISIS for hours, saved those refugees. Sarah nodded slightly. Had team support, Sir Corporal Hayes and Private Ruiz. They didn't make it. Another patron, a former Navy corpsman named Jamal Reed, stood. I patched you up at the Fa Burns from an IED, bullets in your vest. You walked it off like nothing. The Reapers backed toward the door, but found it blocked by rising patrons, veterans with real combat scars, not bar brawl ones. Apologize, one demanded. Jack flushed. Trapped. We didn't know she was what? A Marine? Black? Human. Sarah stepped forward, her presence commanding despite her height, and Jack retreated instinctively. During the standoff, Sarah's hand drifted to her apron pocket, where she kept a compact trauma kit gauze tourniquets. Quick clot from her service days. A reminder to always prepare. All that, Jack muttered. Hargrove approached, phone out, press charges. Sarah shook her head. No, they're leaving for good. Right, Mr. Malone? He nodded frantically. Yes, ma'am. And we'll drop the protection racket whole county. Kneel, Sarah commanded, her voice like a drill sergeant's, and Jack dropped. Apologizing profusely for the assault, the slurs, the threats, his crew watching in humiliation. Accepting, Sarah let him rise, the reapers fleeing, bikes roaring, away meekly. The bar exhaled, Colonel Grant approaching. Sergeant, why here? With your record, you could be anywhere. Sarah folded the torn shirt precisely. Sir, I've done enough extraordinary raids, extractions, losses. I wanted normalcy. No pitying looks, no awe. But they forced my hand. Mike, awed, Sarah, I never knew. That was intentional. She smiled faintly. The first real one in months. As the night wound down, conversations flowed, veterans sharing stories, civilians listening, the revelations sparking connections. A young vet, fresh from Syria, approached hesitantly. How do you blend back in? Sarah paused her cleaning. You don't fully you rebuild. Find purpose in small things, like this bar. By closing, Rusty Anchor felt different, charged with respect. Sarah no longer invisible, but empowered, her Marine ethos shining through in quiet strength. The next day, word spread, drawing more patrons, but Sarah tied on her apron, serving. As always, her peace redefined not in hiding, but in standing firm against the darkness that had tried to claim her. And as she wiped a table, she felt the weight of her dog tags, no longer a burden, but a badge, reminding her that true warriors protect in any arena, be it battlefield or barroom. Their courage etched not just in ink, but in every resilient step. Forward, the evening had started ordinarily enough for Sarah, who arrived at her shift at 4 p.m., the sun still high over the Georgia pines, casting long shadows across the parking lot dotted with pickup trucks and a few sedans from commuters. Avoiding the interstate rush, she'd parked her beat-up Honda in the employee spot, the car as unremarkable as she aimed to be, its trunk holding a go-bag she couldn't bring herself to unpack. Mr. E's, a multi-tool, basic med supplies, relics of a mindset that viewed every day as potential deployment. Asterisk inside. The bar was quiet, the afternoon crowd thin. It's mostly retirees playing darts and sipping sodas, the air conditioner humming against the summer swelter. Mike greeted her with a nod. Busy night ahead, heard some bikers might roll through. Sarah shrugged, tying her apron. We'll handle it, her voice even, betraying nothing of the internal scan she did of the room. Exits clear. Potential weapons, bottles, cues, patrons' demeanors, stable. As hours ticked by, she moved with efficiency, refilling peanuts. Chatting minimally with regulars like old Mr. Jenkins, a Korean war vet who always ordered black coffee and tipped in quarters. Sharing snippets of his stories without expecting reciprocity. But as dusk fell, the vibe shifted, the door banging open to admit the Iron Reapers. Their presence sucking the oxygen from the room, conversations dying mid-sentence. Jack led, his bulk filling the doorway, surveying the space-like territory to conquer, his crew spreading out, ordering drinks with demands for discounts. Their laughter coarse, laced with profanities and glances that lingered too long on female patrons, but especially on Sarah. Their comments whispered but audible. Look at her thinking she's part of the scene. One muttered, the racial edge sharp. Sarah served them, dodging grabs, ignoring taunts, her mind flashing to similar harassments in forward operating bases, where she'd learned to de-escalate or eliminate threats silently. When Jack cornered her about the protection money, his demands escalating to physicality, the rip of her shirt wasn't just an assault, it was a unveiling. The tattoo and scars, a map of her valor. The bullet from a sniper in Baghdad. Shrapnel from a roadside bomb in Helmand. The knife from a hand-to-hand in Fallujah's ruins. Patrons gasped, recognizing the symbol's force recon. The ghosts of the Corps' operators who went deep behind lines, gathering intel, striking fast. Hargrove, who'd served in the National Guard, felt a kinship. Her deployments paling but connecting her to Sarah's quiet ferocity. As Jack stammered, Sarah's recitation of his crimes gleaned from discreet checks on local news and police scanners. She monitored out-of-habits sealed his defeat. The bar transforming from potential battlefield to tribunal. Veterans rising not with fists, but presence. Their collective service, a wall the Reapers couldn't breach. The apology extracted on knees was more than words. It was a reckoning. Jack's voice cracking as he acknowledged the slurs, the violence, vowing reform under Sarah's unyielding gaze. As they left, tails tucked, the bar erupted in subdued cheers. Toasts raised to Sarah, to wave them off, resuming duties. But inside, a spark reignited the Marine in her awakening, reminding her that anonymity was a luxury, but integrity was eternal. Conversations lingered past last call, stories exchanged. Grant recounting his Vietnam days, read his Gulf War patches, Sarah listening mostly. Offering nods, her tails guarded, but the bond forming. Mike, closing up, admitted, "You're a legend," but Sarah corrected, "Just a survivor." Her smile hinting at depths unexplored. The night ended with Sarah driving home under stars. The humid wind through her window carrying scents of pine and freedom. Her mind replaying the events not with regret but resolve, knowing tomorrow the bar would buzz, her secret out, but perhaps. That's where true healing began, in visibility, in community, in the quiet power of being seen for who she truly was. Yet the story of that night didn't end there. It rippled outward as patrons texted friends. Videos circulated discreetly. The tale of the Black Marine who humbled a biker gang became local lore. Drawing inquiries from news outlets, she politely declined, preferring the bar's sanctuary. In the days following, Rusty Anchor saw an uptick in business. Veterans from Atlanta proper making the drive, seeking camaraderie. Sarah becoming an unwitting hub. Her service extending beyond drinks to ears lent. Advice given in measured words. Adapt and overcome, she'd say, echoing Corps' mantras. But that first chapter, the explosion of tension, set the stage for transformations none could foresee. A single shatter of glass echoing into a symphony of respect and redemption. Sarah's journey from shadow to light began with that rip. Her scars, not weaknesses, but badges. Her tattoo, not ink, but identity, forging a new path in the heart of Georgia's night. And as she locked up her apartment that night, dog tags in hand, she whispered a thanks to fallen comrades, their memory fueling her forward, the warrior within, forever vigilant, forever faithful. The build-up to the confrontation had layers Sarah alone perceived. Her heightened awareness, a product of training that never faded, spotting the Reaper's weak links. The limp in one's gait from a poorly healed fracture, the over-reliance on bluster. In another's posture, all while maintaining her facade of timidity. Jack's aggression stemmed from more than greed. It was rooted in a twisted worldview where people like Sarah were lesser, his slurs a weapon as sharp as his claws, but she met them with silence. Knowing words were ammunition best saved. When the shirt tore, the revelation hit like a grenade. Gasps rippling through the crowd, eyes widening at the artistry of the tattoo. The raw truth of the scars, each mark a chapter. The bullet that grazed her lung, requiring evac under fire. The shrapnel that embedded during a convoy ambush, pain suppressed to rally her team. The knife from an insurgent who got too close in a house clear, her counterstrike swift and final. Hargrove's whisper carried weight, her scars mental from policing divided streets, seeing in Sarah a sister in arms. Jack's denial crumbled under Sarah's facts. Her knowledge, not luck, but preparation. She'd run backgrounds on local threats since starting the job. A habit from recon missions where intel meant survival. Grant's recognition brought flashbacks. For Sarah, Mosul's chaos, dust choking the air, gunfire pinning them. Her holding the line as Hayes and Ruiz fell covering civilians, their sacrifices etched in her soul. Reed's memory of the med bay, Sarah refusing morphine to stay alert, showcased her grit, a quality that now commanded the room without a word raised. The blocking of the door by patrons wasn't chaos, but coordinated, their military pasts sinking. Instinctively, a phalanx against thugs. Jack's kneel was cathartic, his apology encompassing not just the night, but the broader prejudices he represented. A small victory in a larger fight. As the Reapers fled, the bar's atmosphere shifted too. One of unity, strangers bonding over shared respect for Sarah's hidden heroism. Her response to Grant's question revealed depths. The toll of service PTSD flashes. Lost friends? The struggle to fit into a world that didn't understand the cost of freedom. Mike's awe was genuine, his youth idolizing her strength. But Sarah grounded it, emphasizing humanity over heroics. The young vet's query touched her, reminding her of her return, the disorientation, the search for normalcy. Her advice, a lifeline. Rebuild piece by piece. Find mission in the mundane. Closing time brought reflection, Sarah and Mike tidying in. Silence, broken by his questions, her answers measured. Affirming no regret for the exposure rate, liberated rather than burdened. The morning after, the lot filled early, word spreading like wildfire. Veterans arriving to pay homage, Sarah serving with grace, redirecting praise to other stories, her presence elevating the bar to a haven. Rusty's return brought offers of time off, but Sarah declined. This is my watch now, her smile firm. Business boomed. Walls soon adorned with mementos, Tuesdays becoming vet nights. Sarah's transformation complete, not hiding scars, but wearing them as armor, her peace. Earned through confrontation, a testament to resilience in the face of bigotry and violence. The chapter closed, not with fanfare, but quiet determination. Sarah's story inspiring ripples far beyond Rusty Anchor's walls. A beacon for those marginalized, a reminder that strength often hides in plain sight, ready to emerge when injustice demands. Yet deeper still, Sarah's internal world swirled with memories triggered by the night, the scent of gunpowder in her nostrils, the echo of commands in her ears, the weight of decisions that saved lives but cost souls. She recalled enlisting at 18, a young black woman from Atlanta's rough neighborhoods. Seeking purpose beyond the streets, boot camp forging her into a Marine. Force recon, selecting her for her sharpness. Deployments, testing her limits. Baghdad's heat, Helmand's dust, Fallujah's urban mazel blended in flashbacks. But the bar incident grounded her, proving civilian life held its battles. The racial slurs stung, echoing the discrimination she'd faced even in uniform. But her response was measured, turning prejudice into defeat. Hargrove's solidarity meant much, a bridge between law and military worlds. Grant's tales of Vietnam paralleled her experiences, generations linked by duty. Reed's patching memory brought gratitude for medics who pieced warriors back together. The patron's stand was heartening, the community rising against threats. Jack's humiliation satisfied a justice long denied. Mike's admiration spurred her to mentor, subtly guiding his curiosity. The young vet's plea resonated. Sarah's words drawn from therapy sessions she'd attended sporadically, learning to integrate trauma. As dawn broke, Sarah jogged the trails near her home, sweat cleansing, mind clearing. Ready for the day's shift, her Chapter 1, a pivot from concealment to embrace the Marine in her alive. Protecting her new tribe with coffee and conversation, her legacy unfolding in unexpected ways. And so the story of Sarah Thompson began its true arc. From shattered glass to shattered illusions, a narrative of triumph over adversity. Etched in the annals of a small Georgia bar that became legendary through one woman's unyielding spirit. The air and rusty anchor still buzzed with the aftershock of the confrontation. The jukebox now spinning a low, mournful Willie Nelson tune that seemed to underscore the weight of what had just unfolded. Sarah Thompson stood at the center of the bar, her torn white server shirt lying in a crumpled heap on the floor like a discarded battle flag. Her black tank top clinging to her frame, revealing the intricate eagle, globe, and anchor tattoo, sprawled across her back. The words Force Recon, SGTS Thompson, 0311, etched in bold, unapologetic letters. The scar's bullet holes, shrapnel marks. A jagged knife wound told a story louder than any words could. Each one a testament to a life of service that had been hidden until Jack Claw Malone's reckless aggression ripped away her carefully constructed anonymity. It was July 15, 2025. It's past 9 p.m. in the humid outskirts of Atlanta, Georgia, and the Rusty Anchor. A roadside bar, known for its cheap beer and quiet regulars, had become a stage for a reckoning. Jack stood frozen, his massive hands still clutching the tattered fabric. His scarred face drained of color, the claw tattoo on his arm seeming to shrink under the weight of his catastrophic misjudgment. His Iron Reaper's crew, once a menacing circle around Sarah, now shifted uneasily, their predatory confidence evaporating like mist under a harsh sun. The patron struckers, off-duty cops, and a handful of grizzled veterans watched in stunned silence. Phones raised to capture the moment, the bar transformed into a crucible where past and present collided. Sarah's posture had shifted, subtle, but seismic. Her shoulders squared, her chin lifted. The submissive server replaced by the unyielding bearing of a Marine, who'd faced worse than a biker gang in the deserts of Iraq and Afghanistan. "Mr. Malone," she said, her voice steady, devoid of the softness she'd worn like a mask, "you owe me for the shirt." The words landed like a gavel, and Jack's eyes widened, confusion giving way to dread as he stammered, "How do you know my name?" Sarah didn't answer immediately. Instead, she turned slowly, deliberately, letting the full weight of her tattoo and scars sink into the room. The Marine Corps emblem, a beacon of authority that silenced even the faint hum of the ceiling fans. Her dark eyes scanned the bar, cataloging every face, every movement, a habit honed in combat zones where a missed detail could mean death. "Stephen Claw Malone," she began, her tone calm but cutting. "Dishonorably discharged from the Army in 2019 for trafficking stolen equipment night vision goggles. Mostly sold to militias in Alabama. You started the Iron Reapers 4 years ago, running protection rackets from Decatur to Marietta. Currently wanted for questioning in 5 arson cases, 3 assaults, and 1 attempted extortion that landed a bar owner in the ICU last month." She paused, letting the facts hang heavy, each one a brick in the wall of Jack's crumbling bravado. "I make it my business to know who's threatening the places I work." The bar was a vacuum of sound. The only noise, the faint creak of a bar stool as Colonel Elias Grant, a retired Silver Star recipient who'd been sipping coffee in the corner booth, leaned forward, his weathered face alight with recognition. "Sergeant Thompson," he said, his voice carrying the snap of command despite his civilian flannel. "Mosul 2017. You held that marketplace against an ISIS cell for 9 hours, Got 20 civilians out under fire. I read the after-action report. When I was consulting at the Pentagon, Sarah's stance shifted slightly, an unconscious acknowledgement of a superior officer. Her eyes flickering with memories she'd buried dust-choked streets. The crack of AK-47s, the screams of civilians, trapped in a crossfire. "Head help, sir," she said quietly. "Corporal Hayes and Private Ruiz, they didn't make it." Her voice caught on their names, a crack in her armor that only deepened the room's awe. Another patron stood, Jamal Reed, a former Navy corpsman, who ran a tire shop down the road but had spent his youth stitching up Marines in forward operating bases. "I was at FOB Falcon when they brought you in," he said, his voice thick with memory. "Summer of 18, you took an IED blast burns across your back, 2 bullets in your vest, shrapnel in your side. Docs said you'd be lucky to walk again, but you were back on patrol in 6 weeks. Sarah's lips quirked in a faint, bittersweet smile. "Docs underestimate Marines," she said simply. But her hand drifted to her lower back, where a compact trauma kit military-grade quicklot. Tourniquets, painkiller sat hidden beneath her apron, a relic of a life where preparedness was survival. The kit's weight was a comfort, a reminder of her training. Though she'd prayed nightly, she'd never need it again in this quiet civilian life she'd chosen. The Iron Reapers were retreating now, their formation broken, their boots scuffing toward the door. But they found their path blocked by 5 men who'd repositioned themselves during the exchange veterans, their postures betraying years of discipline, their eyes hard with the kind of resolve that comes from facing real enemies, not barroom bullies. One, a wiry Hispanic man with a faded 101st Airborne tattoo on his forearm, crossed his arms and said, "You're not leaving until you apologize to the lady." Jack's face flushed, caught between humiliation and the need to save face with his crew. "We didn't know she was," he started, but Sarah cut him off, stepping forward. Her presence filling the space, despite her small stature, didn't. "Know what?" she asked, her voice low, lethal. "That I'm a Marine? That I'm black? That I've earned the right to be treated like a person? Or just that I could break you in ways you can't even fathom?" Jack took an involuntary step back, his crew exchanging nervous glances. Their earlier slurs and swagger, now a liability they couldn't escape. The room was a pressure cooker. The tension so thick, it seemed to hum, every eye locked on Sarah as she stood unwavering. Her scars a map of courage, her tattoo a badge of honor. Deputy Lisa Hargrove, who'd risen during the initial confrontation, now moved closer, her hand resting on her phone, ready to call for backup if needed. "Miss Thompson," she said, her tone formal but warm, "do you want to press charges? We've got witnesses for assault, property damage, and those slurs." Sarah considered, her gaze never leaving Jack, who looked like a man staring down a firing squad. "No need, Deputy," she said finally. "Mr. Malone and his friends are leaving, and they won't be back. Will you, Mr. Malone?" Her voice carried a subtle threat, not loud but unmistakable, like the click of a safety being flicked off. Jack nodded rapidly, his shaved head bobbing like a marionette's. "No, ma'am," he stammered. "We're done here. Anand will stop the protection gigs. Whole counties off limits, I swear." The promise was desperate, born of fear. But Sarah wasn't done. "Kneel," she commanded, her voice cracking like a whip, honed from years of barking orders in life-or-death scenarios. Jack dropped to his knees before his brain could catch up, his massive frame hitting the floor with a thud that echoed in the silent bar. "Ma'am," he mumbled, eyes darting, "I'm sorry for the shirt, for everything. The names, the threats. It won't happen again." His crew stood frozen, their leader's submission stripping away their bravado, their eyes avoiding Sarah's, who stood over him like a general over a defeated foe. "You assaulted me," insulted my race, threatened my workplace, she said. Her tone conversational but edged with steel. Where I've been, you'd be lucky to be breathing right now. But here, we do things differently. So you'll spread the word this county's under the protection of people who've seen worse than you on our best days. She nodded once, accepting his apology, and Jack scrambled to his feet, gesturing for his crew to follow as they stumbled out. The roar of their Harleys fading into the night with far less menace than when they'd arrived. The bar exhaled a collective release of tension. But the energy had shifted. Chairs creaked as patrons leaned forward. Murmurs of awe and disbelief rippling through the crowd. Colonel Grant approached, his coffee forgotten, his eyes bright with respect. "Sergeant Thompson," he said, "I've met a lot of warriors, but you're something else. Why hide it? Why here, pouring beers for guys like me?" Sarah bent to pick up her torn shirt, folding it with the same precision she'd used on napkins earlier. Her fingers steady, despite the adrenaline still coursing through her. "With respect, sir," she said, "I've done my time in the spotlight trades. Recon missions, firefights. I've got a box of medals in storage and nightmares that don't quit. I came here to be nobody, to serve drinks, and not have people look at me like I'm some war hero or a broken thing." She moved behind the bar, pulling a spare rusty anchor shirt from the employee cubby, slipping it on with practiced ease, buttoning it as she spoke. "But trouble finds Marines, doesn't it? Even when we're trying to disappear." Grant nodded, understanding in his weathered eyes, his ghosts visible in the lines of his face. Jamal Reed joined them, his tire shop hands calloused but gentle, as he gestured toward Sarah's back. "Those scars," he said, "they're not just stories, they're proof you walked through hell and came out standing. I patched up guys who didn't make it half as far." Sarah's smile was small, grateful. "Appreciate that, Corman. But the ones who didn't make it, they're the heroes. I'm just stubborn." Mike, the bartender, still gripping the bat he hadn't needed to use, finally found his voice, his young face a mix of shock and admiration. "Sarah, 8 months I've worked with you, and I had no idea. You're like a legend." She laughed softly, the sound rare and genuine, cutting through the bar's heavy air. "That was the point, Mike. I didn't want to be Sergeant Thompson, Force Recon. I wanted to be Sarah, the one who makes sure your coffee's hot and your tables are clean." But the patrons weren't letting her fade back into that role. Not tonight. A woman in her 50s, Maria Delgado, who ran a nearby bakery and had been a National Guard medic, approached cautiously. "I was in Kuwait, 03, she said. "Never saw combat like you, but I saw the ones who came back. You're carrying a lot, aren't you? How do you do it?" Sarah paused, wiping a glass, her eyes distant for a moment. "One day at a time," she said. "You don't erase the past, you build around it. Find something worth doing, even if it's just pouring beers for folks who need a break." The conversation sparked others, veterans sharing fragments of their own stories. Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan, each tale a thread weaving a tapestry of shared sacrifice. The civilians listened, some for the first time realizing the weight carried by those who'd served, their respect for Sarah spilling over to the others. As the night wore on, the bar's rhythm resumed. But it was different. People sat taller, spoke with more openness. The revelation of Sarah's identity unlocking something in the room, a permission to be seen. A young man, barely 23, approached her hesitantly, his dog tags visible under his t-shirt. Lance Corporal Darius King. He introduced himself, his voice low, his eyes carrying the haunted look Sarah knew too well. "Just back from Syria. 6 months ago. I heard what you said to those bikers about not hiding who you are. But how do you live with it? The things you've seen, done." Sarah set down her tray, giving him her full attention, her marine instincts kicking in mentor. Protect her, even here. You don't live with it, Lance Corporal, she said softly. You live through it. The you who went over there, she's gone. You build a new you with what's left piece by piece, mission by mission. Mine's this. She gestured at the bar, making a place where people like us can breathe, where civilians can see we're not just our scars. Darius nodded, his shoulders loosening slightly, as if her words were a lifeline he'd been grasping for. Thanks, Sergeant, he said. And she didn't correct him. Letting the ranks sit between them like a shared bond, the bar's energy carried past 10 p.m. Drinks flowing, stories growing louder, the jukebox now playing Johnny Cash, his gravelly voice a fitting backdrop. Deputy Hargrove approached again, her earlier formality gone. Sarah, I should have stepped in sooner, she said, guilt in her eyes. I saw the way you moved, like you were always ready, but I didn't connect the dots. Sarah shook her head, stacking glasses with precision. You did right, Deputy. De-escalation first textbook. Besides, she added, a glint in her eye, I had it handled. Hargrove chuckled, recognizing the truth. National Guard, myself, she said. No force recon, but I did my time in Iraq. You're something else, Thompson. Sarah's nod was respectful. Every soldier counts, Hargrove. You know that? The exchange was brief, but heavy. Two women who'd served acknowledging each other's unseen battles, their paths crossing in this unlikely place. By 11 p.m., as the crowd thinned, Sarah and Mike worked clean up. The young bartender stealing glances, his curiosity burning. Go ahead, Sarah said, flipping chairs onto tables for mopping. Ask. Mike hesitated, then blurted, how? Do you go from that force recon, saving lives, taking lives to this? Don't you miss it? Sarah considered, her hands moving methodically, her mind far away. Miss it? Some days. The clarity of it mission, team, purpose. But this. She gestured at the bar. This is a mission too. Different stakes, same focus, protect, serve, keep the peace. She paused, then added, I hid for 3 years, Mike, pretending I wasn't that Marine. Tonight showed me hiding's not the answer, standing up is. Mike nodded, awed but grounded by her practicality, his dreams of enlisting flickering. Stronger as closing neared, Sarah found herself alone at the bar, wiping the counter. The neon signs casting a soft glow on her face. She caught her reflection in the mirror behind the bottles. Seeing not the 18-year-old hood enlisted to escape Atlanta's rough streets, nor the battered veteran who'd stumbled back, but someone new, a woman forged in fire, tempered by choice. The dog tags under her shirt, once a secret shame, now felt like an anchor, grounding her to a truth she'd run from. She was a Marine, always would be, and that strength wasn't a burden, but a gift. Outside, the Georgia night hummed with crickets. The parking lot empty, save for a few stragglers' trucks, the reapers long gone. Their defeat, a ripple that would spread word of a black Marine hood face down a gang, would travel fast, drawing curious eyes, maybe trouble, but Sarah was ready. She'd faced worse, from insurgents to IEDs, and come out standing. This was her post now, her battlefield a barroom. Her weapons, coffee, and calm, her mission to create a space where respect outshone hate. The night's events had peeled back. Her anonymity, exposing not just her past, but her purpose. She thought of Hayes and Ruiz, their faces vivid in her mind. Their laughter in the downtime between patrols, their final moments shielding kids in a Mosul alley. She thought of the civilians she'd saved, their names unknown, but their gratitude burned into her memory. The bar, once a refuge for hiding, was now a beacon. A place where veterans could gather, where civilians could learn, where a woman like her, black, scarred, resilient, could stand tall. As she locked up, stepping into the humid air, Sarah felt the weight of her trauma kit, the dog tags, the new shirt, all part of her now. Not relics, but tools. The stars above glittered, and she whispered a quiet semper fi to her fallen. Her resolve steel. She'd protect this ground, not with violence, but with presence. Not with fear, but with the quiet power of a warrior who'd found her peace in standing firm. The chapter closed with Sarah driving home, the road stretching dark and open, her heart steady, knowing tomorrow would bring new faces, new stories, and a chance to serve again, in her way, on her terms. Rusty Anchor was no longer just a Barrett, was her outpost, her legacy. A testament to a Marine hood turned scars into strength and silence into a roar that echoed far beyond the Georgia night. The neon sign of Rusty Anchor flickered against the humid Georgia night, casting a warm glow over the gravel parking lot where pickup trucks and a few motorcycles now gathered in greater numbers than usual for a Tuesday evening. It was late July 2025, just 2 weeks after the confrontation that had transformed Sarah Thompson from an unassuming server into a local legend. Black Marine, whose Force Recon tattoo and battle scars had humbled the Iron Reaper's motorcycle club and turned the bar into something more than a roadside watering hole. Inside, the air buzzed with a new energy, the jukebox playing a steady stream of Merle Haggard and Lynyrd Skynyrd, the notes mingling with the low hum of conversations that carried a weight of purpose, not just idle chatter. Sarah moved through the crowd with her usual precision, her new Rusty Anchor shirt crisp against her slight frame, her curly hair still pulled back in a practical ponytail. But her posture had changed. No longer did she hunch to seem smaller. No longer did she avoid eye contact to blend into the background. Her dark eyes, sharp and assessing, met those of the patrons with a quiet confidence. A Marine's bearing that spoke of battles fought and won, both overseas and here, in the heart of Atlanta's outskirts. The bar had become a magnet for veterans. From across 3 counties, drawn by whispers of the night, Sarah had faced down Jack Claw Malone and his crew, not with fists, but with the unyielding authority of her past. Yet Sarah didn't revel in the attention. She served coffee, poured beers, and wiped tables with the same meticulous care, redirecting questions about her service to the stories of others. Her mission now, to create a space where respect trumped division, where scars visible or not were honored, not pitied. The transformation of Rusty Anchor was palpable. The walls, once bare save for a few faded beer posters, now bore framed photos and memorabilia donated by patrons. A faded flag from Desert Storm, a set of dog tags from a Vietnam vet, a grainy snapshot of a Humvee crew in Kandahar. A corner shelf held a growing collection of military history books, dog-eared and annotated, left by regulars for others to read. Tuesday nights, at Sarah's quiet suggestion, had become Veterans Night, an unofficial gathering where former soldiers, sailors, and Marines shared stories over discounted drafts, their laughter and silences knitting a community that hadn't existed before. Tonight, the bar was fuller than usual, the crowd a mix of grizzled retirees, younger vets fresh from recent conflicts, and civilians curious about the place, now dubbed the Marines Bar. Sarah navigated the room, balancing a tray of glasses, her movements fluid but deliberate, always aware of the exits, the crowd's mood, the potential for trouble, a habit from her Force Recon days that never faded, even in this civilian outpost. She paused to refill Colonel Elias Grant's coffee, the retired Silver Star recipient who'd recognized her from Mosul, his flannel shirt a constant despite the summer heat. "Evening, Sergeant," he said, his voice warm but respectful. "You've turned this place into something special." Sarah smiled faintly, setting down the pot. "Just doing my job, sir. Keeping the coffee hot and the tables clean." Grant chuckled, but his eyes held admiration. "You're doing more than that." Thompson, you're giving us a place to belong." As she moved to clear a table, a young woman approached, her lean frame and cropped hair marking her as a runner, her eyes carrying the 1,000-yard stare Sarah knew all too well. "Lance Corporal Aisha Brown." "Ma'am," she introduced herself, her voice barely above a whisper, her hands fidgeting with a set of dog tags tucked under her collar. "Just back from Syria, 8 months ago. I heard about what happened, hear how you stood up to those bikers." I don't know how to do this. The coming back part? How do you make it work?" Sarah set down her tray, giving Aisha her full attention, her Marine instincts kicking in mentor, protector, even in a barroom. "You don't come back, Lance Corporal," she said softly, her voice steady but kind. "The you who left, she's gone. You build a new version with what's left, piece by piece, day by day. Find a mission, something small but real." She gestured at the bar, the patrons, the photos on the walls. "This is mine, making a place where folks like us can feel seen, not judged. Where civilians can learn we're not broken, just different. What's your mission?" Aisha's eyes welled, but she held it together, nodding slowly. "I don't know yet, ma'am. Maybe it's helping kids, like a coach or something. I was good at track." Sarah's smile was encouraging. "That's a start. One step, one day. You've got the skills, discipline, focus. Use them." Aisha exhaled, a weightlifter, and Sarah handed her a coffee, no charge. "Come back next Tuesday," she said. "We'll talk more." Aisha nodded, retreating to a booth, her posture a little straighter. As if Sarah's words had anchored her, the night hummed along. The bar a living organism, its pulse stronger since that fateful confrontation. Deputy Lisa Hargrove, off duty but ever vigilant, sipped a soda at the counter, her eyes scanning the room with a cop's instinct. She'd been a regular since the incident, drawn not just by Sarah's story, but by the community forming around her. "Your trouble, Thompson," she teased, leaning over. "This place used to be quiet. Now it's a damn pilgrimage site." Sarah laughed, wiping the counter with precise strokes. "Blame Malone. He ripped the shirt, not me." Hargrove grinned, but her expression softened. "Seriously, Sarah? You've done something here. People talk about this place like it's sacred ground." Sarah shrugged, uncomfortable with praise. "It's just a bar, Deputy. People need a place to feel safe. I'm just holding the line." Hargrove nodded, understanding the unspoken Sarah wasn't just serving drinks. She was guarding a sanctuary, her Marine ethos repurposed for peace, not war. As midnight approached, a package arrived, delivered by a grizzled courier who looked like he'd ridden with Patton himself. For Sarah Thompson, he grunted, handing over a small padded envelope before vanishing into the night. Sarah, wiping down a table, frowned, but took it behind the bar, opening it carefully, her fingers brushing the familiar weight of metal. Inside, a purple heart, polished to a mirror shine, lay nestled in tissue paper, accompanied by a note. "SGT. Thompson, you left this at Fob Falcon. Thought you might want it back. Corman Reed." Jamal Reed, the tire shop owner who'd patched her up in 18, had tracked her down, his gesture a quiet acknowledgement of her sacrifice. Sarah held the metal, its weight pulling her back to a dusty med bay, the burn of antiseptic, the pain. She'd pushed through to stay mission ready. She didn't Cremarines, but her throat tightened as she walked to the wall of memorabilia, pinning the medal beside a photo someone had found. Her, Corporal Hayes, and Private Ruiz in Mosul, faces dirt-streaked but smiling, standing before a bullet-riddled marketplace. The caption read, "Heroes of Mosul, 2017. She lingered. Memories flooding Hayes', bad jokes, Ruiz's quiet courage, the kids they'd shielded as bullets flew. 21, she whispered, correcting the caption in her mind. "Oh." Was born later, named her Sarah. Mike, the bartender, joined her, his eyes wide. "That's you," he said, awed, pointing at the photo. "You don't talk about it, but—" "Damn, Sarah." She turned, studying his young face, his curiosity tempered by respect. "It's not about talking, Mike. It's about doing." "Those two?" She nodded at the photo. "They did everything. I just kept breathing." Atensi hesitated, then said, "I've been thinking about enlisting because of you. What you represent: service, standing up for something." Sarah's gaze sharpened, assessing him. "Good reasons, but make sure they're yours, not mine. The Corps takes everything: your heart, your sleep, sometimes your soul. Be ready to pay that price." Mike nodded, his jaw set, and Sarah saw a spark of the kid she'd been at 18. Signing up to escape Atlanta's mean streets, not knowing the cost until it was etched in her skin. The bar quieted as closing neared, patrons drifting out, leaving tips and nods of gratitude. Maria Delgado, the former guard medic, lingered, helping stack chairs. "You've changed this place, Sarah," she said. "It's not just a bar anymore. It's home for a lot of us." Sarah paused, a rag in hand. "That's the idea, Maria. A place where we don't have to explain the weight we carry." Maria nodded, her memories of Kuwait flickering in her eyes, and Sarah felt a kinship. Two women who'd served in different ways but understood the toll. As they cleaned, a young couple approached civilians, not regulars, their faces nervous but earnest. "Ms. Thompson," the man said, "we heard about what happened. We're teachers, and we want to bring our students here, show them what service means. Would that be okay?" Sarah blinked, caught off guard. "This is a bar, not a museum," she said, but her tone softened at their sincerity. "Talk to Rusty, the owner. If he's fine with it, I'll show them around. But no hero, stuff's just the truth." The couple beamed, thanking her and Sarah. Shook her head as they left, muttering to Mike, "This place is getting out of hand." He laughed. "You started it, Marine." Rusty himself returned from Savannah the next morning, pulling Sarah aside during the lunch rush. "Heard everything," he said, his grizzled face serious. "You okay? Need time off? Hell, you could quit, start a security firm with your record." Sarah tied her apron tighter, a small smile playing on her lips. "With respect, Mr. Rusty. I've got tables to serve. Besides, this place is about to get busier. Every vet in Georgia's gonna want a beer where a Marine took down a biker gang." Rusty chuckled, clapping her shoulder. "You're right. Business is up, and it's because of you. Keep doing what you're doing, kid." Sarah nodded, returning to her duties. But his words lingered. She wasn't just a server anymore. Was the heart of Rusty Anchor, its pulse tied to her resolve. Over the next weeks, the bar's transformation deepened. Veterans Night became a ritual, drawing crowds from as far as Macon, their stories filling the air, some harrowing, some hilarious, all raw. Sarah listened more than she spoke, her presence a quiet anchor. Her advice practical: find what grounds you. She'd tell a vet struggling with PTSD, or write it down, even if you burn it after, to another haunted by memories. Civilians came too, drawn by curiosity but staying for the community. Their questions respectful, their eyes opened to the cost of service. One night, a local reporter slipped in, notepad discreet, asking for an interview. "No story," Sarah said firmly. "This isn't about mitts, about them," gesturing to the vets laughing over a pool game. Their camaraderie a shield against the dark. The reporter left, but the bar's legend grew. Whispered on social media, in VFW halls, in church basements where support groups met. Sarah's healing was subtle but real. She still woke at 3 a.m., heart pounding from nightmares of Mosels. Dust and blood, but now she jogged the trails near her apartment. the Georgia pines grounding her, the rhythm of her steps a counterpoint to the chaos in her mind. She'd started attending a veteran support group in Atlanta, not to talk, but to listen, finding solace in shared silences. Her trauma kit stayed in her apron, a reminder of readiness, but she'd added a small notebook, jotting down names of vets who needed a call, a coffee, a nudge toward therapy. Her dog tags, once hidden, now rested openly against her chest on slow nights, their clink a quiet anthem of survival. One evening, Aisha Brown returned, her track coach dream taking shape. She'd started volunteering at a community center, teaching kids to run. "Because of you," she said, shy but proud. Sarah shook her head. "Because of you, Lance Corporal, you found your mission." Aisha grinned, and Sarah felt a warmth she hadn't known since her squad's last laugh together before the world exploded. A month after the incident, a new photo joined the wall. Sarah, Aisha, and Colonel Grant raising coffee mugs. A candid shot from Veterans Night captioned the anchor's guardians. Sarah hadn't wanted it up, but Rusty insisted, saying, "You're part of this now, Thompson." She relented, knowing it wasn't about her but the community she'd helped forge. The bar's revenue spiked, Rusty hiring extra staff, but Sarah stayed the constant. Her shifts a rhythm of service coffee for Jenkins, beers for the vets, a kind word for the young couple whose students now visited. Wide-eyed, learning about sacrifice from the memorabilia and Sarah's quiet explanations. She didn't glorify war. She spoke of duty, loss, and rebuilding. Her words resonating with kids who saw her as a hero but left understanding the human cost. One quiet afternoon, as Sarah swept the floor, a letter arrived, forwarded from Fob Falcon through military channels. It was from a mother in Mosul, translated into English. Thanking Sergeant Sarah for saving her son in that marketplace, now a teenager studying engineering. "You gave him a future," it read. Sarah folded it carefully, tucking it in too. Her trauma kit, a new weight beside the quick clot and gauze proof her sacrifices mattered. She didn't tell anyone, but Mike noticed her quieter than usual demeanor, asking, "You good?" She nodded, smiling. Better than good. That night, she hung a small flag from Mosul beside her Purple Heart, a silent tribute to the boy. To Hayes, to Ruiz, to the pieces of herself she'd rebuilt. Rusty Anchor was no longer just a Barrett, was a haven. A testament to resilience, a place where a Black Marine had turned a moment of hate into a legacy of unity. Sarah's peace wasn't in hiding her scars, but in wearing them openly. Her tattoo, a badge, her service ongoing. She served not with a rifle, but with a coffee pot. Not in a combat zone, but in a roadside bar. Her mission clear: protect, uplift, endure. As she locked up one night, the stars bright above the Georgia pines, she whispered Semper Fi to the ghosts who'd never left her, their strength in her bones, her heart. The bar stood as sacred ground, where veterans found solace, civilians found understanding, and Sarah Thompson, once invisible, now shone as a beacon of what it meant to serve always faithful, always forward, always unbroken. Her journey wasn't over, it was just beginning, etched in the laughter, the stories, the quiet moments of connection that made Rusty Anchor more than a playset, was her post, her purpose, her peace.